Welcome, everyone, to this wonderful episode of Awaken the Possibilities. I'm your host, Terry Wildemann. I love bringing spectacular guests to you that have phenomenal stories. And tonight, whatever time it is that you are listening to this, is no exception. My guest today is going to share how her health issues have led to some phenomenal experiences. And I'll tell you, this woman is a rock star. I loved speaking with her. We did a little 15-minute, which turned into, I think, an hour and 90 minutes, 90-minute chat before the show a few weeks ago. And it was like I couldn't wait to bring her on. So allow me to introduce you to the amazing Gina Gardner. She is a #1 international best-selling author, a motivational speaker, empowerment coach, and transformational leadership trainer with well over 30 years of experience helping people experience happiness, success, and fulfillment. She's the founder of the Thrive Together Tribe, membership and personal and spiritual development program, and the Enlightened Leadership Program. Gina has had to learn to walk twice, not once, twice as an adult. For over 20 years, she ran her award-winning school, for the most part, from a wheelchair. The gift of this experience was the development of a unique approach to life and the development of transformational leadership. Gina is passionate about supporting people to live a truly happy, successful, and fulfilling life, and supporting leaders to become the spiritual matriarchs and patriarchs who lead with integrity, compassion, and the courage to do what is right rather than what is expedient. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, I am too, because you are quite an extraordinary person. And we share the love of leadership. We share the love of helping people evolve. We share the love of being able to work through things and look at them with blue sky perspective instead of the cloud perspective. So, Gina, I would love for you to share with folks what you shared with me in terms of what got you to where you are right now.
Well, thank you. It wasn't until I started work at the age of 21 that I really felt as if I'd found who I was. And I started teaching. I was good at it and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was promoted very quickly. And so age 28, I became the deputy principal of the largest, and I think in America, the equivalent would be junior high school. Mm-hmm. And I was promoted to be the catalyst for change. I was the youngest bar 2 on the staff, and the school was very much stuck in the dark ages. And I enjoyed working with my principal, but by the February half term, halfway through the year, we have a week's holiday. And I was really pleased to get to the week's holiday, and off I went skiing, which I was really keen to do. I was a good skier. But in those days, the fashion was to have the longest skis possible. And I'd been convinced by the guy in the shop to buy a pair of skis that were 10 centimetres longer than I was used to. So with my friends, who were all excellent skiers, I found for the most part in the week, I was tail end Charlie, because I kept wrapping that extra 10 centimetres round one another. And on the Thursday, I had quite a bad fall. So I said to my friends, I'm not going to ski with you tomorrow morning. I'm going to go and get my confidence back, because it was the last day of the holiday. Joined them for lunch, and they said, we found this fabulous new run. Come and join us. And so I did. It was a beautiful day, the sort of day that you see in the mountains where the sun was shining and the snow was glistening. It was just exquisite. So as we went up on the chairlift, you saw, the valley disappearing below. It was just a day of such beauty. Got off the chairlift, followed them. We went round a corner. They stopped. I caught them up, and it was pretty evident we weren't where they thought they were supposed to be. So instead of being on a 6-kilometre red run, we were at the top of the Schindlergratz, which is the most difficult black run in St. Anton.
Wow.
Full of moguls. Now, for the people who don't know what a mogul is, it's where the snow is being carved out by the weather. And they're often a couple of inches. But these were 6-foot monsters. It was a very steep, very long slope. And the only way to negotiate it, and there was no other way back, was to ski and then on top of a mogul, turn and slide down and then ski along and do that, moving across the mountain. I skied the first third, and then I had quite a significant fall because I'd left it too late to turn. And it took me about 20 minutes to retrieve my ski and to join my friends, who were each sitting on a mogul, rather like an elf sitting on a mushroom.
What a visualization. How many of them were there?
We were 5 altogether.
Okay.
So I took my skis off and I sat on my mushroom, my mogul, and we were just chatting. And as I say, it was a beautiful day. And suddenly the top of my mogul gave way. And there was nowhere to land. So I just bounced and rotated. And all I remember is hearing a scream. And then sometime later, I came to further down the mountain. I'm told by my friends and by other people who saw the fall, it was between 150 and 200 feet. Fortunately, I didn't have my skis on, because I think if I had had my skis on, I probably would have done some dreadful damage. And I think because I knocked myself out, I was floppy and relaxed, and that helped me. It took them ages to get down to me. But the one good thing about it is with the ski, the fall, and then a ski and another fall, I'd managed most of the run. And so we were
That's one way to do it.
I don't recommend it, I have to tell you. I didn't want the blood wagon, and so they helped me back to the hotel. Had a horrendous night and then travelled home the next day. My mum took one look at me and I was carted off to accident and emergency. And they told me that I'd got a concussion and I'd trapped a nerve in my neck. And it took me about 3 weeks to get back to school. Fast forward about 4 or 5 weeks, and I was the deputy leader on the borough ski party with 150 children. And so off we went, and I was allowed to go because we've got medics with us, this time skiing in Switzerland. And as the week went on, I became more and more like Quasimodo. I was really struggling to stand upright, and I was finding it more and more difficult. And by the last day, the end of the last day, we got back to the hotel, and I said to my colleagues, I've just got to go and lie down. I'm running on empty. And so I went up to my room and I lay on my bed, and within very, very few minutes, I discovered that I was paralysed down one side. Now, there were children milling about in the corridor. I didn't want to frighten them. And so I had to wait until an adult came to check on me. I've no idea how long it actually was, but it felt like an eternity. And even as I'm talking about it now, I can feel that sense of panic when, you know, the body that you rely on suddenly won't do what you want. Eventually somebody arrived, and then all hell broke loose, and I was carted off to the local hospital and then transferred to Geneva University Hospital. And I was there for about a week, and by the time I was flown home, I was beginning to get some movement back. So it took me until the end of May to get back to school. And I wasn't right. I was doing school, going home, going to bed. And so I was so relieved to get to the end of the term and think, I've got 6 weeks now. I can have 6 weeks rest and recuperation. I'll get myself sorted out for September. 10 days in, very early in the morning, I received a phone call. And my principal's wife was on the other end, and she was just hysterical. And she'd found John in bed, and he died in his sleep from we found out later, a massive heart attack. So far from it being the restful holiday that I had hoped for, I helped her arrange the funeral. I had to let the staff, the parents, the local authority know, and then plan for September, because I was now acting head. And I was appointed the permanent head in the following January. So very young, very green, but incredibly determined that I wanted the children and the staff to have the best learning opportunity that I could create. And that
Gina, when you say you were very young,
I was
how old
29.
is 29? It's a lot of responsibility at that age.
And I'd been the deputy for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was very green, but very determined that I wanted everybody. I'd been very unhappy at school, and I'd worked for two principals prior to John, who was a great principal, but my first two principals taught me how not to rather than how to. And I was determined that I wanted things to be a really great learning environment. And so my health wasn't great, but I made the decision that it didn't matter how I felt in the morning, I was going to go into school. And within a very short time of being in school, I was so busy and so interested in what I was doing that it actually, how I feel first thing in the morning, and it's still like that, it's like resurrection, not getting up, that I would, that was no decision. Unless I was in hospital, I would go into school. Now, I started to use a wheelchair to get around school in 1987. Didn't use it in my office or the classrooms, but I couldn't manage. It's quite a big site, and I couldn't manage that. And I managed between 1987 and 1996 by using a wheelchair to get around school. But in 1996, just before the summer holidays, I sneezed and I felt something go in my back. I managed to get to the end of term. This was a couple of weeks before the end of term. And on the last day, I was taking assembly and I'd got a chair where I could sit at standing height. And the children had just gone out with their teachers. And I found that I couldn't actually put my weight through my legs. So went off to hospital and I discovered that I'd ruptured a disc. Woke up in the surgery to find that I'd got failed back surgery syndrome. So if I put my left foot to the floor, I just used to faint.
Oh, wow.
And I became a very good stalk. So by now, I had to be completely in a wheelchair. And what I discovered, of course, is I couldn't physically get into my classrooms. I'd struggled before to spend time on my feet. And so over the period of time from 1987, I had developed or started to develop a way of empowering staff, teachers and non-teaching staff, which didn't require me micromanaging them, because it was about them taking total responsibility for their own performance and a shared responsibility for everybody else's. Now, it then took me 18 months to walk to the bottom of my very small garden. And I was really pleased to get there by the Easter of not the next year, but the following year. And then fast forward to the last day of term, summer term, school holidays. And we had a staff do, went out for a meal, came back and I felt unwell and I was sick. And I felt something go in my back. And I had ruptured another disc. Again, rushed off to hospital, had an operation, and again, failed back surgery syndrome. And so having been able to walk to the end of my garden, I could not stand up. And I was completely wheelchair bound then for many years. And I continued to run my school. But the gift, and there's been a huge gift in my disability, is that not only did my own school do very well, and we were on the best 100 schools list, not once, but twice during my tenure, and I'm extraordinarily proud of that.
Yeah,
but we became, thank you. We became one of the first beacon schools, so worked with dozens of other schools and hundreds of other teachers, teaching them the same strategies, principles and techniques. I was invited to be an advisor for the government. I worked as a trainer facilitator for the National College of Leadership and the London Institute. Not all at the same time, but that brought an income into school and we had a very poor budget, but also kept everything cutting edge.
Sure, very nice.
So now we're 2004 and I go to see my neurologist in May And he gives me an ultimatum. And the ultimatum is stop doing the 14, 15 hour a day that you're doing 5.5 days a week, because work was great pain control, or you'll be completely housebound and you won't be able to drive. And I had an adapted car with hand controls and an electric wheelchair in the boot. So that was a huge wake-up call.
Wow.
And so I made the very difficult decision that I was going to leave headship of being a principal. And about to the same time, in the later on in the year, I had an internal spinal stimulator fitted. Now, in the UK, going for early retirement in the teaching profession normally takes about 6 months.
Right.
So with the summer holidays and my application, I timed it because I thought I'll go at Christmas. And so I timed it that my application should go in immediately before the bank holiday. So
now, can you describe what a bank holiday is? Because some people don't know what that is.
It's like your Labour Day. It's a day where people have time off from work. So we historically have the last Monday in August off. Mm-hmm. So my application went in on the Thursday, and by the Tuesday, I had a letter saying, you're retired. I'd planned what I was going to do, and it didn't involve retiring a week after the application had gone in. And so I negotiated with them that I would retire at the end of October. Went in to have the spinal stimulator fitted and had terrible complications, and I actually came out of school in November. I thought, what now? I'm not ready for daytime television. I mean, even after, even after the spinal operations, I was back at school 4 days later.
Sure.
Because if I was at home, all I could do was read or watch telly. I couldn't make a cup of tea if somebody hadn't filled the kettle and left a cup out. Mm-hmm. And so I was used to being busy. I was used to being involved in something that I loved and I did well. And so there in November, I am left with, what do I do now? So I decided to do a research project because my belief was that leadership was the same, whether you were in local government or finance or retail or manufacturing, health. And so I did I did a research project and found, of course, the same issues face whichever industry you're in, because you're talking about people. And I wrote my first couple of books to be my calling card. And to start with, I worked mainly in corporates. I've always done life coaching and some relationship coaching. And I did that until the last recession. And then in a week, all of my contracts went. And so I had to reinvent myself yet again. And by this time, I was doing some work for Essex University Business School, and they would commission me to go out to work with businesses to do some training or some troubleshooting. And I kept being invited back. And so I started to work with companies on a consistent basis, always with the senior decision makers. And I still do that today.
Excellent. And how many years have you been doing that?
I've been doing that since 2000 and the very beginning of 2009.
Very nice. And that 2009 was when the everything fell apart financially. So you were very fortunate.
Well, within 1 week, contracts which I'd had that were supposed to last all year just disappeared.
Yeah, just disappeared. I know. I closed my center in 2009. Yeah. I remember that very clearly. Yeah, it was an intense time.
But I had a growing sense that my purpose was something more, that there were so many people unhappy, so many people stressed. And I worked with not only leaders who were stressed, but people who were, part of an organization where the leaders were fairly toxic. And so I set up Genuinely You and have since written a couple more books. And the whole purpose of that is to raise the quality of leadership in people's lives. You are the leader in your own life, you're the common denominator, but also to raise the quality of leadership in organizations. And so I have this.
Excellent. So I'm curious, Gina.
Yes.
Would you say that your disability was actually a gift?
I would say that, yes.
Okay, in what way?
I'd like to think that I would have developed the same approach to empowering other people and giving them the responsibility to be the leaders of their own lives and the arbiters of what's quality. But I'm honest enough to know that I'd probably been too interfering, that I'd have been. Now, that's not to say I just said go and get on with it. What I was able to do is to create within the organisation a shared language. So when we talked about excellence, everybody knew what excellence looked like in the context of this or that. That I set up a train. It didn't start off as a structured sequential training program. Serendipity. Each of the levels of the training program were created out of a need. But I think perhaps the biggest thing for me is my nickname before all of this was Tigger. I had endless energy and used to bounce about. And I think that what the disability did is it made me take a step or a seat back, right, to be quiet. Mm-hmm. To start to use my inner voice, my intuition. And I honestly think I'd have been too busy and too noisy to have ever heard it.
Isn't that fascinating how listening to your intuition has helped you move forward?
I think it's been hugely instrumental. I mean,
nice.
At so many levels, is this the right person to come and join me? And I was very clear about the sort of person. Is this the right thing to do? And there were times that I was a maverick. So they introduced, for example, the literacy hour in the UK. And it was doing everything opposite to what I believed in. And so my intuition said, don't do it. It also said, don't just not do it. So I've applied for formal disapplication. Now, people said to me, what are you doing that for? And I said, because it's the right thing to do. So I invited the authorities in to say, look at what we're doing. We've just had an inspection which said it's exemplary. Why would we do what you're suggesting? Interestingly, 2 years later, they turned it on their head and they started doing what we were doing anyway.
There you go.
That inner voice said, it's not right. You need to do something different. And you need to do something formally in order to ensure that the school's right. And that was down to my intuition, that inner voice that just kept that little nag going.
Well, congratulations for listening to it, because as you know, intuition is key to successful leadership.
I believe it is.
It truly, truly is. So I'm curious. There are a few questions that I'd love to ask my guests.
Okay.
And the first one is, what is your favorite word?
Empowerment.
Why is that so important to you?
Because it encapsulates everything that I do, that I'm about. It's, if you cut my arm off, it's a bit, I don't know if Brighton Rock is a reference that you'd understand, but if you go to the seaside at Brighton or any seaside place in the UK, they have sticks of peppermint sweet, and then written through them, it will say Brighton Rock or Clacton Rock. And so I think the purpose of empowering others to step into their genuine power is who I am, and it's what I do.
Nice. And what is your personal definition of success?
To make a positive difference to other people's lives, and to do that in a way where there's no dependency model, that they truly are able to fly.
Nice.
I can do that whether I'm talking about an individual or a couple or a team or a whole organization, and very specifically with leaders, that I can empower them to recognize and nurture the potential of others and empower them, then I've truly done what I'm about.
Nice. Very, very nice. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I'm curious, what is your absolute best advice for entrepreneurs and leaders?
You are the common denominator that you take into every moment of every day. So your mindset, the quality of your thoughts is really important. 95% of our thinking is habitual. So if you think I will fail, it's a completely and utterly done deal. And most people who believe that they will fail don't even get started. If you believe you might fail, you're going to make very different decisions to the belief I will succeed. Now, it doesn't mean you've got to know how you're going to do every bit of it to start with. But if you go into something with the mindset that I will succeed and I have got the resilience, determination, and persistence to do what it needs to succeed, then just as the I will fail is a done deal, I will succeed and I will do what it takes to get there is a mindset that makes it much, much more likely that you will succeed and succeed in a sustained way. And the other thing I'd say is that the relationship you have with you is absolutely imperative, because every relationship you have is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. And so it makes sense to, be your own best friend, have high standards, but don't beat yourself up.
There you go.
And I suppose the last thing was that if you're waiting for it to be perfect, you'll wait forever.
So you will wait forever.
Be good enough and then work on refining it once you get going.
There you go. So when you hear me say the words awaken the possibilities, what comes up for you?
Well, for me, it's just like the sunshine coming out. For me, awaken the possibilities is the difference between having a door locked and bolted and having a door ajar, and being prepared to be open to what's on the other side of that door. Having the courage to peep round and to take a step out of your comfort zone, because, the possibilities are endless and the only thing that's going to get in the way is you.
Nice. Thank you so very, very much. So Gina, tell me, where can people get a hold of you?
So they can get a hold of me on the websites, genuinely, and dash hyphen and the word you.com. That's genuinely-you.com. Or if you're interested in leadership, go to enlightenedleadership.co. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me Genuinely You on Facebook, or you can email me at gina@genuinely-you.com.
Well, Gina, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story today with the Awaken the Possibilities audience. It truly is a testament to focus, determination, and listening to intuition. Your leadership is spectacular, and I'm sure the influence that you had over those teachers and those children is absolutely amazing, and it is probably propelling them at this very moment in everything that they do. So again, thank you so very, very much for being here. And to my Awaken the Possibilities audience, I'm Terry Wildemann. You know where to find me at intuitiveleadership.com. And you can watch this show and all of our other shows at awakenthepossibilities.com. You can also find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and on Acast. If you go to Awaken the Possibilities, you will see, I think we have 10 different platforms that you can listen to, and you can watch the video on YouTube. So we look forward to bringing you more guests that are absolutely fantastic that help you awaken the possibilities in business and life. I'm Terry Wildemann, and I look forward to seeing you next time.